about 4 ways to grow your business. And I think this is a good time to start on this because this is really about getting back to basics. And this is something that it's just good to revisit this, look at how we're generating business. And that's what we're doing here is just really getting back to what is the core of our business, trying to simplify it. You should have gotten handouts this morning, and should have gotten a couple handouts. One's a white paper on the 4 ways to grow your business, and the other is a just outline of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited about this. Well, let's get started. So what are the 4 ways to grow your business? And really, it's pretty simple. And it's on your outline. I've shown it here. The first one is really to win new customers, and everybody thinks about that right away. Okay, and that's fine. I mean, that's something we all need, some new customers. But we also there's another part to it, and that's the right type. We have to have the right type of new customers. That is absolutely critical. So for my case, I cannot do unlimited individual income taxes. So I can't add a whole lot of individual income tax returns. I add a couple every year, but that's fine. But what I do need is more business work, because then it provides opportunities for doing more work throughout the year. So for me, that's the right type. Each of you has a little different scenario. And so, you got to define that. What is the right type? Is it somebody that pays bills within 30 days or prepays or orders a sufficient quantity? These are all factors that you have to think about as far as who you're going after. So winning new customers is a big piece, and that's something we all, like I said, go to. But then number 2 is increase the number of times they deal with you. Now, and again, every business is a little different, but for me, it's some of this extra add-on stuff as far as doing additional work, especially with our business clients. If you're in retail or a manufacturer or distributor, this would be how many times they order from you. Or if you're a service, how many different products do they buy? And when I'm really getting into the average sale here, but the point is thinking about multiple touches with these clients. And that's what we're looking for, is the multiple touches, and that's something that most of us don't know, and we're going to walk through some examples here in a minute. The 3rd way is increase average sale. Now, I can increase the average sale immediately by just saying, okay, my prices are going up 10%. But that doesn't necessarily work, because if I'm not providing at least that much in value, and if the client can't afford it or doesn't want it, then it doesn't work. So what I have to do is say, okay, what am I going to offer to my clients that's worth more and providing additional value? And the same for you is, are there additional products that you can add on to what you're selling to your existing customers, or services, again, or maybe you're selling products and they need the service. These are things that we have to start thinking about. And then the 4th way is, and again, these are gross simplifications, but I think it helps us to get back to basics. And the 4th way is to improve the effectiveness or processes to achieve the first 3. Now, this sounds like a catch-all, and it is in one way, but systems can help us really clarify and focus on things we need. So a real simple thing is, what is your conversion rate on new leads? Well, if we get systems in place where we can improve that effectiveness or can improve that conversion rate, then that is just absolutely critical, because we don't know how many new leads we can get, but if we can work on the conversion, man, that's great. Okay. And so we're going to walk through a few other samples here, and I think we're actually going to talk about systems more next week. So those are the 4 ways. And for those clients that have been with me for a while, you've heard these before, but it's good to get back to those basics. So let's look um, at a little sample of a Excel template and what happens when we start focusing on these core things. And I hope you all can see this. And uh, so we're starting with, over here, number of customers. We're assuming we add 20% each year, and we're assuming we lose 20% each year. So we're it's a flat business. We're keeping 300 customers. And this template was put together by a buddy of mine. We sort of worked together a little bit on it, but he did all the hard work on this. And this is just really a good way of thinking about this. So then we have our price per unit, whatever we're selling, and the quantity. How many are they buying? If you're selling software or widgets or whatever it is, and then how often do they buy? And then what is our average cost? All of this comes back to, based on what we have here, we have 3.6 million in sales. And based on an average cost of $700 per unit, we got 2.5 million in cost of goods sold. We got gross profit of $1 million, got overhead of 770, and we made 310,000. And then down here is just a real rough, we have in here a 3 times multiple of earnings. And that's just typically small businesses sell between 3 and 5 times. Sometimes they can go higher, sometimes lower. So here's the possible value of the business. So, and again, we're trying to grossly simplify things because then it helps us think about it. So what can we do? If we win new customers, so if we can work on this additions, instead of 20%, say we get an extra 10%. Okay. That makes a huge difference in our profit over here because this flows all the way through. Okay. And then, what if we, instead of losing 20%, we lose 15%. Oops. Nope, wrong one. There we go. So again, each of these starts bumping this up. So this is when we start playing with the numbers. What happens with our price? We raise it 2%. Okay, again, this starts jumping. And the number of frequency, we can, change this instead of 12 times, maybe it's 13. Well, actually, I did that wrong there. So make it, 13. Okay, again, everything starts jumping when we can start bumping these things. And, I'm using some pretty big numbers here. Let's reset this. So let's just say we fixed all these little pieces by 1%. Typically we can say, oh, yeah, we can do 1%. We can fix that. All of a sudden, you went from 310,000 in profits to 511 for a $201,000 improvement. I'd say that's pretty good with some minor changes. Now, you may not be able to do all of this, and that's the point. Each of our businesses is different. Some of us right now, you may not be able to add new business because markets are just so messy. But what we can then do is maybe work on the defections. Because if we drop the defection rate to 0, it's the same as adding 20% new customers. So, this is where we have to just look hard at our business and then focus on the things that we can control. I hope this makes some sense. I mean, I know this is just throwing a bunch of numbers at you, but you start seeing when you have small changes, you can do things. And this is how it helps us. because when we're looking at this, we can say, okay, now, you know what, maybe I need to drop my price by 5%. Okay, actually, let's reset this. Say I need to drop my price by 5%. Okay, that's going to cost me $180,000. But maybe this is what the market's telling me I have to do. So what do I have? Maybe I can renegotiate my cost here. Okay. Uh, I wanted it this way. Okay. So I might be able to help by renegotiating with my supplier. But then I can say, okay, well, I need to pick up $54,000. And by dropping my price, I might be able to pick up an extra 10% here. All of a sudden, I've got a lot of moving parts, but I got a net change of 48,000. And this is the good part. So we start looking at what we can do. And so this is where we start seeing what's working and what's not. And we all have some things that are working for us. Now, right now, some businesses have a lot of problems just because of the environment and, COVID and the social unrest and all of that. But there is something that's working, and we got to focus on that. So there's a couple other things here, as you start thinking about this, is how else are we going to use this? What is this? This is giving us some baselines on numbers. And this ties into our key performance indicators that we talked about a few weeks ago, because when we know what our average transaction value is, then we can see if it's changing. Now, some businesses are going to change, daily and weekly, and it's going to go up and down, but over time it's staying the same. That's fine. But when it's constantly moving down or constantly moving up, we got to look at it and it's like, what's going on? And this gets into systems and document, systems to track this stuff. Because how many people know how much their new customers they have and how many defections they have every year? This is an important thing. I mean, I look hard at any defections I have every year. Why? Now, some of them are clients I actually just soon go because they're not the right customer. They're in the wrong fit. And they're not using some of my services that they really need. I'm okay with them leaving because it's wasting my time. The point is, this is something, when we get systems to look at this, then we can make intelligent decisions on where we want to go with our business. So that's where this whole system thing comes into play. So what's our key takeaway today? Our key takeaway is we want to identify what the weakest links are. And, where are we having problems? And then we also want to look at what's working right and focus on that. We want to look at our systems hard. And again, we're going to go through this next week in a little more detail, but we need to track results. How are these things moving? And then we got to share it with our team. If you share, let me pull the screen back up here. Whether you share the whole process down to net income, some clients actually do this, that's fine. Or maybe you just share this top part with the revenue and maybe even cost of goods sold, but share it with your team. Ask them, how can we improve our defection rate? How can we add more customers? How can we sell more? How do we sell more of the right things? What's holding us back? You'll get some good ideas. So that's the key thing here, is to start narrowing down what we can work on, and then working with it with our team. So I think that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Now I'm going to open it up to questions and see what see what we can do. Um, One of the questions, isn't the fourth way to grow your business just about reducing expenses? And no, it really isn't, because you can't grow your business by reducing expenses. You can only get so far by reducing your expenses. I think it's uh, either Hewlett or Packard said you can, the theoretical uh, growth rate is zero when you're focused on strictly expenses. And so, what we want to do with the systems is highlight how we can be more effective and efficient. Obviously, we want systems for operations that are going to produce the our expenses, but that are going to keep our expenses in control. Yeah, obviously, we want to do all that stuff. But in this context, systems for how can we provide better service so that we reduce our defection rate. I mean, we're constantly looking at how we can improve our systems in our business. And so this is just such a huge piece because it's not negative, it's all positive. It's how can we continuous improvement. This is the Six Sigma that General Electric put out. And again, it's about getting efficiency. And that's so you can produce more. Or like in my case, I might look hard at what my revenue is per client and whether I'm making money and all that. What that does is it frees up my time so that I can focus on the areas that I need to focus on. So if I can do it more efficiently, then that frees up time so that I can spend it on something productive. I hope that makes some sense. Um, Another question here is, what this really made me think about pricing and discounting. I think this is a great tool for thinking about that. If going back, 10 plus years, in 08 and 09, I think it was Saks, and I could be off. It was one of the luxury retailers, and they did a huge discounting. And it did a couple things. One, they had to increase their volume so much just to cover that. And two, it just destroyed their brand. And so this is the type of thing that you have to be very careful about is what is your brand and what are you selling? And, like if you could offer me a brand new Tesla right now, and you could discount it 10, 15, 20%, I would not buy it. Why? Because I'm not in the market. Now, somebody else on this call who might be in the market, well, what you've done is you've just given away 10 or 15% because they were going to buy it either way. So that's the part where when we get into pricing, it becomes a problem, and that's a matter of knowing your market. So anyway, this is really good to think about these things together. Let's see, somebody else has, is it better to choose just one of the four areas to change or small changes in all four? I think it depends. And I'm not trying to be a weasel here. We can, any one of the areas, there might be an area that just screams at you and says, hey, you need to focus on this. That's what I would focus on. But again, this is where getting your team together. Somebody may see some things to add new customers. Somebody else may say, hey, let me work on the average sales price. Somebody else may be able to say, we can get customers to buy more. Everybody may have different ideas that they can impact separately. Everybody, like I said, for me, a lot of it, this defection rate is just huge. And we use 20% because that's kind of a generic amount of defection that's out there, but it's out there with all of our businesses. And when we start really zeroing in on that, it helps us with our customer service. And then we start seeing why people aren't buying from us. And we may still have customers that are buying from us for specific reasons, but our service in the other areas has dropped such that they only buy with us for one or two specific purposes. Everything else are getting somewhere else. So this is where looking at these systems and trying to identify why, and this gets back to everything comes back to why. And you start drilling down. Why is the sales down? Why is this? And you keep drilling, and that's when you'll find the real problems. So let's see what else. What are some more ways we could get transaction value up? This is a great question. One of the things, there's just different ways. And part of it's getting to know your customer and really understanding what you're selling and what they're buying. So in my case, if I know that my customer, and part of this, it gets back to how you define your customer. So if in my case, I define my customer as a small business owner, then what am I doing for that customer? Well, I may be doing his personal return. I may be doing financial statements. I may be doing a corporate return. Am I doing his kids' return? Am I doing his related entities return? Maybe he's an investor in a couple other entities. Can I get those? Okay. This is a matter of thinking about this, holistically. And each one of your businesses is a little different on this. And so that's where you got to start thinking about that. What do they really need? And why are they not buying it from me? And there's a reason. Now, maybe it's some things you may have to discount some pricing, but that's some discounting for add-ons that you otherwise weren't getting is actually okay. And this is where it gets into some playing with the numbers a little bit. Because if we weren't getting $1,000 worth of sales, but if I can drop price by 5% because that's what the competitor is getting, customer just soon get everything in one spot. But they're not going to overpay for certain things. So that's the part where we got to just really figure out what they need. And a lot of this gets back to how well do you know your customers? That is a key thing here. So I hope that helps a little bit. But like I said, it comes back to just knowing customers. Let me see what else we got here. Got some good questions today. If we create a system to provide better customer service, doesn't that touch on all the 4 ways to grow? Actually, yeah, it does. That's a great way of doing it. But then you have to go the one step further beyond just great customer service. Then you got to have an extra system, if you want to call it that, for the referrals or for taking that customer service and really expanding it, to are we capturing the rest of the stuff? Some people may take it for granted. And because one of the problems with customer service when you increase it is people after a while take it for granted and then it becomes the new norm. And then you're not wowing your customers anymore. So we have to keep moving this up. So I hope that makes some sense. But yeah, if everything comes back to customer service. And if we're doing that, generally, we're going to be in pretty good shape for most of the other things. Let's see. Okay, and let's see. Oh, one other side thing about the transaction value going up. I missed this part of it. Thinking about upselling, bundling, things like that. That is another, again, it's a possibility and it depends on your customer. Bundling there's a reason a lot of businesses do bundle. But sometimes that may not be the right thing. It's hard to say. One of the things, whenever you get into this with pricing, a critical thing is to just test it. See what happens. And that's the part where, you don't know. When you throw something out, and if it's working, then you do more of it. And if it's not working, you quit. So you try not to bet the farm on any one solution, because you don't know what people are thinking. I mean, I've read a lot of books from pricing experts, and it's pretty obvious that they don't know. It's just a series of educated guesses. So I hope that answers those questions. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Let's see. Oh, here, how do you increase the transaction frequency? Thinking about contacting customers more. Yeah, that's, obviously something like what I'm doing here today, just being transparent here. I'm increasing how often I'm touching customers, and that's the part when the more you touch the customers, the more they're going to be willing to spend money with you, or to use you to help them with whatever areas, if your service or products. So, again, we want to do whatever we can to increase that touch, but in a systematic way. So anyway, it's almost 11:30, and if there's any other questions, I would encourage you to email me, and I'd be glad to get back to you as quick as I can. And this is something that, it's just really critical that we get focused on, our business and what's working for us. So anyway, I look forward to hearing any emails, and I also would appreciate if anybody has any suggestions, or, just shoot me an email and let me know if you're finding that these things are still worthwhile. I got a number of topics that I think are worthwhile, but I just want to make sure that this is something that is helpful to you. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a great weekend.